समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
You're probably fed up of this whole bare biceps guy saga by now, but I think that may be the intention. The intention may be to overload you with all this stuff so you get bored and you look away. And when you look away is when the action will really begin. So at the risk of boring you, let's start pretty much at the beginning. You know who Ranveer Allahbadia is. He's the guy who calls himself the bare biceps guy. He's a very popular YouTuber. Some years ago, maybe 2 years ago, he was sort of suborned by the government and turned into a government stooge in that he was sent to go out to do interviews with government figures, pro-government figures. And he conducted all of these interviews in the kneeling position, laughing sycophantically at their so-called jokes, saying yes to everything they said, doing his best to promote them, and then provoking them in the manner of a troll, saying things like, who are the people you'd like to see thrown out of India? And of course, when they mentioned liberals, he giggled again. So that's who he is. Now, one of the things he's done is appeared on a YouTube show called India's Got Latent. Now, India's Got Latent, not India's Got Talent. Get it? It's that kind of show. It's the show that wants to seem edgy and cool, etc. One of the guys, possibly the creator, a guy called Samay Rana, tweeted, the reason we don't have edgy comedy in India is because the left threatens to cancel people. And then he gave the example of various American comedians and British comedians, most of whom, in any case, were not right-wing, and said that's why we can't have people like that. But he said he would not be stopped because the people were with him. Okay, so there are these two sets of guys. Now they did this show, they recorded an episode which was allegedly witty and off the cuff, etc. In fact, the jokes were all basically stolen. There was one really bad taste joke that they got from a foreign show about watching your parents having sex and joining in, etc., which they incorporated. This is frankly on par with the stuff these guys do. So this India's Got Latent guy has previously done bad taste jokes when there was this whole Roe versus Wade thing in America and a load of unfunny right-wing comedians were making jokes about it. This guy decided, though it meant nothing to us in India, we had no controversy about abortion, it was not a big thing, to make a few jokes about it. And he said he wished his girlfriend, when he asked her to have an abortion, wouldn't say things like, my body, my decision, ha, ha, ha. So that, I'm only saying that to give you an idea of the lack of originality. These guys go and copy jokes. They don't really have context to India. They're not even right to India, but they do them on YouTube and they say, hey guys, we're so cool, we're so edgy, we're so popular. They say it in Hindi, but that's basically what they say. One of these jokes, which is the one about the parents and wanting to have sex with them, was on the net. A lot of people noticed it, and there was some, I think, understandable outrage. I am probably not the right guy to ask if I was outraged. Of course I was outraged, but then I'm nauseated by most things this bare biceps guy does, his chamchagiri, the way he sort of licks the boots of people in power, and I'm nauseated by these alleged right-wing comedians who believe that the left is going to come for them and cancel them, when the truth is the right has been in power for a decade. The right calls all the shots over here. The comedians who are arrested are not right-wing comedians. Yet, these guys pretend to be crusaders for free speech, make jokes about having sex with your parents, and think they're cool. Well, I don't expect you were surprised that there was an uproar about this joke, but what surprised me was where the uproar came from. It didn't come from these left cancel guys that they keep fighting against allegedly. It came from the right wing. there was a huge orchestrated campaign against Allahbadia because he is actually the best known of them, but a campaign against the whole thing. A social media campaign from the people you've spent your life supporting is odd, but they really went for him and they demanded action. As if on cue, various BJP state governments filed FIRs against this guy. Police from all over India came to Bombay to try and arrest him. This India's Got Latent guy was asked to delete all his programs. And as we speak, they face all kinds of challenges from the courts, public disapproval, possible arrest. So it's not exactly a great situation to be in. Now, the irony of all this is even while the right wing has formed this hit mob against them, and even while BJP government's trying to arrest them, the guys who've actually stood up for them are liberals. And liberals have stood up for them saying these guys are nauseating, they're disgusting, but that's okay. They have a right to be nauseating, they have a right to be disgusting. Just because I find that stuff puke-inducing doesn't give me the right to demand that the police arrest them. That's what freedom of speech is about. Freedom of speech only means something when you use it to defend speech that you don't personally approve of. If we were to use freedom of speech to defend people who agreed with us, then what's the point of the principle, right? So while this was going on, various theories were advanced for why it was happening. The most common theory on social media was that this was a distraction. There was a stampede at the Kumbh, stampede at New Delhi railway station, trouble in Manipur. The government wanted a distraction. And sure enough, the pliant electronic media and all of social media focused on these guys like there was nothing else of consequence happening in India. That's one possible theory, but even then, I had a second theory. My theory was that the government wanted to take control of digital media. They wanted to be able to censor everything. They wanted, in effect, to be able to stop any criticism of the government on social media or on digital media. Why would you pick on these guys? Well, A, the opportunity presented itself because these guys are idiots and make the wrong kinds of jokes. But also because it gives a certain credibility, doesn't it, to any campaign against free speech, because you say it's not just that we want to encourage our chamchas. Look, we're arresting our chamchas. We're going to act against them. We just believe this has gone too far. Digital media should be controlled. So I predicted and I expected a few days ago that there would be some attempt to introduce some kind of broadcasting, new version of the broadcasting bill, some kind of legal control of content on YouTube and on digital media. And this guy would be used as the excuse, and the public outrage would be exploited to help them impose more censorship. I warned then that it didn't matter whether we were nauseated by these guys. They had a right to say what they wanted. Government had no business arresting them. And if you fell into the trap, as some liberals did, of going for bare biceps because you're such a chamcha of the regime, well, you were doing what they wanted you to. Because the moment you said there should be action against him, you were going against the principle of freedom of expression, and you were giving them exactly the opportunity they needed to impose more censorship, to impose more control of YouTube, of digital media, of conversations like this one. And that, I think, is pretty much what happened. It's got worse because Bare Biceps went to the Supreme Court and said quite reasonably he wanted protection from arrest and that all the many FIRs filed against him should be combined into one. The Supreme Court granted that, which I think it was obliged to under the law, but it also went full angry uncle on him. He was called a pervert. He was told he had a dirty mind. The Supreme Court said, why should we even entertain people like you? It went on then to say, and this was the most significant bit, how can you say this and go against society? We will not tolerate it. And we want the government to come and tell us what kind of controls it's imposing on YouTube and other digital media, because if the government doesn't do it, we will do it. Now, that's great in terms of for anger or whatever. And yes, as you know, anything said in a court is not binding. These are oral remarks. But this is exactly, absolutely exactly what the government wanted. So now you have public outrage, you have a guy on the run, and you have the Supreme Court saying, let's have more censorship. So what do you think is going to happen next? Well, here's my prediction. I think the government is going to go back to the Supreme Court. It's going to say, yes, sir, we think you're absolutely right. We are working on laws to impose some kind of censorship. You have seen the public outrage. You have seen how angry people are. These so-called digital creators just go too far. They have no idea what is right, what is wrong. In the process, these jokers who were sort of licking the boots of the right wing discovered to their horror that even while they were doing this, the right wing kicked them in their faces. They really don't know what's hit them. But they're what? They're patsies. They're no more than an excuse to do more censorship. You should expect laws. You should watch out for attempts to curtail free speech. You'll think by now that this whole beer bicep stuff is over. It's a bore now, but it's not a bore. This is when it gets serious. This is when the laws will come. So keep a watch out. These jokers are not important. The principle is important. And the principle is, in this country, free speech is subject to certain restrictions: defamation, national security, incitement to violence, etc. The jokes that these guys cracked, as disgusting as they were, did not fall into any of these categories. An attempt will be made to argue that it doesn't matter if somebody says something that is offensive, then yes, we have a right to control it. What is offensive? I mean, everything this Allahbadia guy has done for the government at their behest is offensive to me. But I don't have the right to have him stopped. So why should the government have the right to curtail your freedom and my freedom only because of some orchestrated campaign of disgust? That's the question you got to ask yourself, because it goes beyond these guys. It touches the root of which kind of society we are and how we're going to conduct ourselves.